theme of the entire conference cannot be underestimated because of the contemporary relevance of the topic itself. What I would start with defining what we mean by a global university. For far too long, we've been looking at education from a rather domestic standpoint. If you look at most of the Indian universities over the years, the structures and the context in which they've evolved have been largely public institutions born out of a strong commitment to investment in higher education. And if you look at the contemporary landscape of higher education in this country, you have over 400 universities, over 25,000 colleges, and even after the impact of globalization, largely the focus and the context of Indian higher education system continues to be domestic in nature. And so, if we have to, in many ways, recognize and appreciate the remarkable change in the way in which universities have started to govern themselves around the world, we need to recognize that globalization has had a profound impact on every aspect of human life, and indeed has had a rather profound impact on education itself. Now, anecdotally speaking, I would like to briefly mention my own personal experience of having studied in two of India's good universities. I went to Royal College Madras, under the University of Madras, and then to Delhi University, Faculty of Law. After which, I got an opportunity to be a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, where I did my master's, and then to Harvard, where I did another master's, and then did my doctorate at the University of Hong Kong. Now, the reason I mention this is that my own personal experience of what I gathered from studying and working in many of these institutions around the world is, I must say that we are unfortunately significantly lagging behind in terms of the developments and the radical transformation on higher education, right from our curriculum, courses, programs, faculty, research, and interaction. We need to infuse a stronger sense of globalism. And this aspect of globalism, which ought to be infused into every aspect of higher education, does not mean that we neglect what takes place within the context in which our institutions ought to function. So, to me, globalization and a focus on global education includes what happens within particular domestic and local conditions. So, if we were to ask the question, what ought to be the schools doing in India to prepare our students to be able to embrace and in many ways contribute to this dramatic transformation in the context of globalization, one of the important things which we need to do is to challenge the status quo that is deeply embedded in the hearts and minds of our parents and our society. I must say this from, again, a personal standpoint, and this story could be replicated multiple times across Indian schools and colleges. When I aspired to study law in the 90s, most of my relatives had approached my parents and said, Raj was a good student, what happened? What went wrong? Mr. Basim will appreciate the context in which law and legal education grew in India. Most of the bright students in India since the 1950s obviously had gone into engineering and medicine, and careers dominated in hard sciences and similar to that. But the other social sciences, in particular law, but also you could place as example many other social sciences, were not only neglected, but indeed frowned upon. So the image and the context in which social science education grew in this country was, if you don't do anything good and cannot get anything better, you end up studying law or history and political science and many other disciplines are having even poorer reputation among the large members of our society. And this has to be challenged. And unfortunately, the challenge cannot take place at the university level. It has to happen at the school education level, at the higher secondary level, and definitely at the societal level. So the first important reform that ought to take place is we need to significantly invest in the study of humanities and social sciences, while we recognize that these are important aspects of the higher education phenomenon that needs to be developed. Secondly, we also need to move beyond our preoccupation with careers and jobs as as the sole objective of any higher education project.